You've heard of kings who built empires and emperors who ruled with iron fists. But have you ever heard of the ruler who believed he could defy death itself, not with armies, nor with gods, but with gold? This is not a tale of victory, nor of wisdom, nor of greatness. This is the tale of a man who drowned his mind in greed and drank his way into madness. The emperor who demanded liquid gold and paid the price. In the heart of a vast empire stood a palace that glistened beneath the sun. Its marble pillars reached to the heavens, its walls inlaid with emeralds and sapphires. Within its golden halls lived an emperor who had risen to power not by chance, but by sheer cunning and cruelty. He was not born to the throne. He seized it, by betrayal, by blood, and by fear. His name echoed in every corner of the empire, carried by trembling servants and loyal soldiers alike. He was feared more than he was loved, and for him, fear was enough. The emperor's obsession was not only power, it was immortality. He wanted his empire to last forever, but more than that, he wanted himself to last forever. He believed that to be mortal was to be weak, to age, to wrinkle, to decay. These were insults to the throne. And so, from the day he crowned himself emperor, a new hunger consumed him, the hunger to conquer death. The empire was rich in gold. It filled the vaults, glittered in the markets, and adorned the temples. To most, gold was wealth. To the emperor, gold was life. He summoned alchemists from distant lands, men who carried scrolls of strange symbols, who spoke of secrets whispered by stars and fire. They promised him what he wanted to hear, that gold was not just metal, but a divine substance, pure, eternal, incorruptible. If flesh could be made of gold, one alchemist said, then flesh would never wither. If blood could be infused with gold, then blood would never rot. The emperor's eyes blazed. Then make it so, he demanded. And so began the experiments. Alchemists worked day and night in dark chambers, surrounded by smoke and the stench of chemicals. They ground gold into dust, mixed it into wine, dissolved it in strange brews of mercury and herbs. They told him that by consuming it, a man could fuse his soul with the eternal. The emperor did not hesitate. He drank. At first, the emperor consumed only small amounts, flecks of powdered gold stirred into goblets of honeyed wine. It glittered as it slid down his throat. He smiled, imagining eternity blooming inside him. He began to boast to his court. "Look at me," he said, raising his hands to the torchlight. "Do you see decay? Do you see weakness? No, you see the sun made flesh." His courtiers clapped and cheered, though their eyes betrayed unease. But none dared speak against him. When weeks passed and he felt no different, he grew impatient. "Not enough," he told his alchemists. "You will give me more." And so, larger amounts were prepared, bowls of liquid shimmering with gold dust, thick brews that clung to his lips as he drank them down. He laughed when his stomach churned, calling it proof of transformation. But in the shadows of the court, whispers grew. His skin had taken on a strange pallor. His eyes seemed restless, haunted. He laughed too loudly at nothing. He raged too quickly at everything. The emperor was changing. The more he drank, the more his mind unraveled. At banquets, he demanded entire goblets of molten gold be brought to him. He would raise them high, proclaiming, "The gods drink nectar, but I drink eternity." Servants trembled as they poured the glowing liquid into jeweled cups. The smell of scorched metal filled the hall. He would gulp it down, ignoring the burns, ignoring the agony. His courtiers forced smiles, clapping as if witnessing a miracle, but their faces were pale. Soon, his temper became unbearable. A servant who dropped a plate was executed on the spot. A minister who questioned him was flayed alive. He accused his own generals of plotting against him and had them drowned in vats of molten metal. But worst of all was his paranoia. He began to believe death itself stalked him through the palace halls. At night he would scream at shadows, swearing he saw a cloaked figure waiting in the corners. He slept less and less, pacing endlessly through chambers lit by gold lamps. The emperor was no longer a ruler. He was a prisoner of his own obsession. The alchemists, once favored, now feared for their lives. They begged him to stop. "Majesty," they said, Gold is not life. It is poison. It will destroy you. But he struck them down. Liars, he roared. You fear what you cannot understand. Gold does not kill. Gold is eternal, and I will be eternal. Yet his body told another story. His once strong frame grew swollen and sickly. His skin turned a sickly gray, flecked with strange golden blotches that shimmered in torchlight. His breath was foul, his stomach twisted with agony, though he concealed it behind a mask of fury. Still, he drank. Still, he demanded more. Soon, the palace reeked of sickness. Servants whispered that their emperor's veins ran with metal instead of blood, that his heart was turning to stone, that his soul itself was being smothered in gold. And then came the day when his obsession destroyed him. One night, in the great banquet hall, the emperor announced a feast like no other. The tables overflowed with roasted meats, fruits, and wine. Musicians played, dancers twirled, but all eyes were on the emperor. Before him sat not a goblet, but a great golden bowl. Within it shimmered a molten brew, thick and glowing, prepared by terrified alchemists under his orders. He stood, raising the bowl high above his head. Tonight, he declared, I become a god. His courtiers gasped as he lifted it to his lips. The liquid burned as it touched his tongue. His throat convulsed, his body shaking violently, but he forced it down, gulp after gulp, until the last drop was gone. For a moment, silence, and a scream tore through the hall. The emperor's body convulsed, his skin blistering, his mouth foaming with gold-stained bile. He clawed at his throat, his eyes bulging, his screams echoing like the roar of a beast. And then silence. With a thunderous crash, he fell across the banquet table, spilling dishes, shattering goblets, his lifeless body glinting with streaks of gold. The emperor was dead. The court sat frozen in horror. None dared approach at first. The smell of scorched flesh and metal filled the hall. His body shimmered grotesquely, as though gold itself had begun to fuse with his skin. When finally the guards lifted him, he was heavy, unnaturally so. Some whispered that his veins had hardened, that his very organs had turned to metal. Word spread quickly through the empire. The emperor who had sought immortality had instead found mockery. Foreign courts laughed at the tale. Priests declared it proof that greed was a sin punished by the gods. His throne, once gilded with his ambition, was draped in black. But his name lived on, not in glory, but in infamy. And so ended the tale of the emperor who drank gold. He sought to make himself eternal, but all he found was death. The story is a warning that echoes through history, that greed can twist even the greatest rulers into monsters, that no throne, no crown, no empire can shield a man from mortality. Gold may glitter, but it cannot save, it cannot preserve youth, it cannot cheat death. And the emperor who thought otherwise became eternal only in one way, in the horror of his downfall. So the next time you look upon gold and marvel at its shine, remember this: there was once a man who drank it and went mad.